With Las Corla and Hiachtaí, I welcome the opportunity to provide you with an update on housing and in particular the government's progress since the publication of Housing for All back in September 2021, just over 2.5 years ago. Undoubtedly, while challenges remain, we continue to operate in an ever-changing environment. Real progress has been made. It is important to take time to reflect on this, and today provides me with that perfect opportunity. And it's also timely to discuss the conclusions and recommendations of the Housing Commission. Under our programme for government and Housing for All, we established the Housing Commission in 2021 to take a long-term strategic view of housing over an extended time horizon post-2030. We tasked the Commission with examining issues such as tenure, standards, sustainability and quality of life issues in the provision of housing. I received the Housing Commission report, a report which was 3 years in the making, just 13 days ago. It was discussed at Cabinet this morning and I will publish it very shortly. I intend to publish it this week, actually, Las Corla. I want to thank the Commission members for their work and indeed their efforts, their commitment to this process. And since I set up the Commission in 2021, I have engaged with it over that time. Its work is integral to our Housing for All plan, and it is important that as part of the ongoing process that we continue to review new inputs into the plan. And like any plan worth its salt, it has inbuilt reviews, and the Housing Commission report is part of that. The majority of its recommendations of Las Corla are already in hand and build on the detailed plans we already have in place. Other aspects will require more detailed assessment, and I will further analyse and assess the 300+ page report, which covers almost 3 years of work by the Commission, and ensure that it is integrated where appropriate into our housing targets and action review over this summer. Oireachtas tábhacht go rá go bhfuil an rialtas ag athbreithnú na spríocanna tíochta, agus an obair seo Airsiúil tá sé tábhachtach go chur in úl gur saróidh na spríocanna fíor iomlána faoi tíochta de chach sa dábhlíon ó seola é. It's important to set out the context of what we have achieved in Housing for All so far. Housing for All is the most ambitious housing plan in the history of the state. Housing has the potential to impact on every aspect of Irish society, and that is why it is the highest priority of this government. We continue to take a whole-of-government approach in developing and indeed in implementing our plan. We consider every element of the housing system, use every lever, continuously review and take an agile approach so that we can accelerate and increase the supply and affordability of homes for our citizens. The plan sets out a series of bold actions to meet the housing challenges we face. It is backed up by record capital investment with over €5 billion this year alone. The plan puts forward a vision that aims to ensure that people have access to sustainable, good quality, affordable housing to buy or rent while meeting the needs of the most vulnerable in our society through measures addressing homelessness. The increasing number of homes being built over the last couple of years do show that Housing for All is working. Over 32,600 homes were completed in 2023, 10% higher than the previous year, and the highest number in 15 years. It exceeded the Housing for All target of 29,000 by almost 13%. We've seen an additional 5,841 homes already completed in the first quarter of this year. 12-month completions are up on last year, from 30,744 in quarter 1 2023 to 31,820 in quarter 1 of 2024, It is the third quarter in a row that the rolling 12-month completions have surpassed 31,000. The progress being made is reflected in the independent research being conducted. The BNP Paribas PMI construction report for April shows residential construction activity expanding for 2 successive months. It notes that residential construction, new orders, employment and purchasing all increased in April 2024. It's also worth noting that according to the Euroconstruct, an independent construction market forecasting network active in 19 European countries, construction output in Ireland is forecast to grow by 4.4% in this country, whereas it's expected to fall by 2.1% in other EU countries. These trends are reflected in what we are seeing on the ground. There's been a strong level of commencement activity between January and April this year on the back of the government's waiver of development levies and Uisce Éireann connection fees. Construction has commenced on 53,000 homes this year to the end of April. That's approximately 350 units starting on site every working day so far this year. We expect to see many of these developments progress substantially over the next 6 to 9 months. We may see a dip in future commencements in the short term as the focus shifts to progressing those newly started developments toward completion. Longer term delivery continues to trend positively. Planning permission figures were strong last year. There were 41,225 permissions granted for new homes, an increase of 21% on 2022. The uplift in planning permissions, along with the considerable increase in commencements in the past 12 months, indicates a strong pipeline of new homes into 25 and 2026. Increased delivery of social housing is an absolute key to Housing for All objectives, and it is supported through a range of funding streams. New build social home output is increasing year on year, and preliminary data is suggesting a similar increase this year in 2024. Almost 12,000 new social homes were delivered last year through a mix of new builds, acquisition and leasing programmes, and this was an increase of 16% on the previous year. It was the highest annual output of social homes in decades and the highest level delivery of new build social homes since 1975. All of these indicators show that the uplift in delivery seen in recent years will be sustained this year and built upon in subsequent years. While homes are being built at record rates, we know that more is needed. It will take time for the measures set out in Housing for All to fully take effect, but we are already seeing significant progress. There's no overnight fix to issues that we face, but the Housing for All plan is addressing the root cause of the problems. The government is also acting decisively to expand the options for those currently facing affordability constraints in buying or renting a home, with an unprecedented level of financial commitment and delivery ambition. The affordable measures introduced by government will make home ownership and are making home ownership achievable for tens of thousands of individuals and families. They will also reduce the rental pressures on thousands of hard-pressed middle-income earners. Short-term measures will support people immediately, allowing for longer-term measures to take hold. We've already seen a very substantial scale-up in this space. Over 4,000 housing supports were delivered last year via approved housing bodies, local authorities, the Land Development Agency, through the First Home Scheme, the Cost Rental Tenant in Situ and the Vacant Property Refurbishment Grant. And these figures actually, Alaska Corla, represent an increase of 128% on 2022 activity, which highlights the significant progress achieved to date in relation to affordable housing. I am projecting this year as well, Alaska Corla, that we will exceed 6,000 affordable homes this year. First-time buyer activity continues to go from strength to strength. More than 30,000 first-time buyers were approved for a mortgage in the past 12 months to the end of March, up 7.5% on the previous year. Home purchases by first-time buyers are up 5% year on year in the 12 months to the end of February, accounting for more than 1/3 of total purchases by households. Mortgage drawdowns by first-time buyers also reached a new peak of almost 26,000 last year, the highest level that we've actually seen since 2007. Support such as the Help to Buy, the Local Authority Home Loan, the Ready to Build and the First Home Shared Equity Scheme have been critical to ensuring access to affordable housing and to assist those aspiring to purchase their own home. The level of demand under the First Home Scheme, with nearly 4,500 approvals to date, prompted government to invest a further 40 million, bringing the total state investment to 240 million over the lifetime of the scheme, matched by the bank, so 480 million invested through this scheme. Already in the first quarter of this year, 809 approvals and 262 homes purchased under the First Home Schemes, and approvals are up 38% compared to quarter 1 2023. Housing for All's focus on supply and affordability measures includes those in the rental market. There has been significant engagement with the sector as part of the review of the private rental sector, which is due to be completed actually next month. Issues like rent controls and the regulatory environment are being assessed in detail. As you know, last week Government agreed to extend the RPZ rent restrictions into 2025. And my aim is to support the private rental sector, a private rental sector that is predictive and not reactive. A sector that provides an efficient, affordable, safe and secure framework for tenants and landlords alike. And while supply is increasing, we know the challenges remain. Reducing and preventing homelessness remains a top priority for me as Minister and for this Government. And Housing for All recognises the particular challenges of homelessness for families and for individuals alike. The Homeless Quarterly Report published on Friday, May 10th, showed that in Q1 2024, a total of 653 households exited emergency accommodation. That was a 7% increase on Q4 2023, and actually an increase of nearly 20% on the same quarter in 2023. During the same period, 1,024 households were prevented from entering emergency accommodation by way of a tenancy being created, and that's an increase of 60% on Q1 2023. Looking at the adult homelessness figure, we can see that between 2020 and 2023, 23,446 adults were either prevented from entering emergency accommodation or indeed exited emergency accommodation into secure long-term accommodation. And while exits and preventions are increasing, the only solution to resolving the current housing crisis is to increase the supply of social, of affordable, and yes, of private housing. And to ensure that this happens, the Government have taken clear and decisive actions to help close the viability gap and reduce construction costs. Last month, I announced an extension of the temporary waiving of local authority development contributions and Uisce Éireann connection charges. The temporary time-limited nature of the waiver and refund schemes have undoubtedly been a factor in influencing the speedier activation of planning permissions by the development sector since they were introduced last year. That is a cost reduction measure and also an activation measure that was sorely and badly needed, and we've over 18,000 commencements in the month of April alone. It shows what an initiative like this can do to stimulate construction. The exemption, along with other measures introduced by Government, assist in enhancing the viability of developments and incentivising the bringing forward of developments that might not otherwise have been financially viable. Measures such as the Secure Tenancy Affordable Rental or the STAR Investment Scheme will ensure that thousands of cost rental homes are delivered by 2027. And STAR is specifically designed to support the development of cost rental homes and activate uncommenced sites. In 2023, I approved just short of €60 million to support the delivery of 426 additional cost rental units and continue to look for further opportunities. Just with regard to cost rental at Last Count Quarter, this is a tenancy, a tenure that didn't exist over 2 years ago, that this House legislated for, that we have thousands of tenancies approved and thousands of tenants actually in place now. And we intend to accelerate that through our AHBs, through the private sector, and indeed through the local authorities and the LDA. The Project Tussie initiative has facilitated the LDA to partner with developers to ensure that delayed or otherwise unviable projects are completed. These homes are made available to tenants and purchasers at affordable rates, and the LDA will deliver 5,000 homes under this scheme by 2026. This is in addition to the agency's pipeline on state-owned or acquired land, where there's a number of projects already under construction. Croí Cónaithe Cities scheme is introduced to address the current viability gap between the cost of building apartments and the market sale price, and that's expected to deliver 5,000 owner-occupier apartments in urban centres. And this will support compact growth and vibrant livable cities. 5 contracts have now been signed to date, and that's almost 600 apartments which will be delivered under the scheme, including a 274-unit development in Cork City, the largest private sector apartment development there for over a decade. And I want to make sure that we have mixed tenure across our cities and apartments, that we have affordable cost rental, that we have social, and yes, that we have private apartments for sale for owner-occupiers. And supply is key, But Housing for All is not just about delivering the necessary homes for social, affordable and private. It's also about setting pathways to economic, societal and environmental sustainability in the delivery of housing. The plan will ensure that we achieve a more sustainable housing system that is fit for purpose and that will create long-term, vibrant communities with the necessary supporting infrastructure. As you will all be aware, significant work is being conducted into the reform of our planning system. The largest review of the planning system in over 20 years culminated in the Planning and Development Bill, which will be going to report stage in the Dáil next month. When enacted, it will provide a new and updated legislative framework for proper spatial planning and sustainable development across the country. It will ensure that the planning system functions to support and regulate the development of land and infrastructure, enhance natural assets and amenities, and preserve, protect and improve the quality of the environment. It will ensure there is a transparent and timely decision-making within the framework of policy, strategies, plans and consents. This will give stability and certainty to all stakeholders, whilst balancing public policy objectives, environmental considerations and public participation. This bill will be the cornerstone of Irish planning for decades to come. The revision of the National Planning Framework has commenced. It is intended that the first draft of this revision will be published in June, followed by a period of consultation before its final publication in September. The revised National Planning Framework will consider climate transition, demographic change and the implications for future policy projections and structural housing demand. The NPF, as revised and updated, will update our housing targets, and that will be available in the autumn of this year. It will be underpinned by a robust evidence base and will take into account up-to-date population numbers and projections. These will allow us to further plan housing delivery in the period to 2030. Housing for All is a plan that lives up to its name. The trend of increased commencement and completions is proof that the plan is building and sustaining momentum. While the figures show that progress is happening and the plan is having a real effect, we know that there is a lot more to do. We will continue doing everything in our power to increase affordability, improve the rental market, eradicate homelessness and fix the housing system for generations to come. Just in conclusion, if I may as well touch on the area of vacancy. We've seen a very significant take-up in relation to the vacant homes grant, the Croí Cónaithe grants. Nearly 8,000 applications across the country, many of which homes I've actually visited, giving an opportunity for homeowners to buy good properties, to bring them back into use, and for the state to provide up to €70,000 in grants through this scheme alone, and also while being able to access the SEAI grant too. There is, I believe, much further potential in bringing back vacant homes into use, and our local authorities are doing that extremely well now, I might add too. 8,500 vacant social homes brought back into use, but most importantly, looking at other significant buildings in our towns and villages across the country, and indeed our cities, which are brought back into use through the Buy and Renew scheme and the Repair and Lease scheme, which we fully support as well. And I saw significant work just last week being done in Carlow, right the way across the country, where over 90 homes are being brought back into use, buildings repurposed in Carlow alone, repurposed old commercial buildings, significant buildings in the middle of our towns there as well, which are being brought back into social housing use. So undoubtedly significant progress has been made. We will continue to build on that progress because we have a plan that is published, not only published but we're working on, that's being implemented, but that's fully supported through Exchequer funding and through government commitments. I might just in conclusion touch on two matters in relation to defects as well. Both defects in apartment defects, where we're going to start with our first 4 Pathfinder schemes very shortly, and also in relation to the defective concrete block scheme, which we're seeing an increased applications to that scheme. 2 very firm commitments that this government made to step in when there was a market failure, to not only get homes back together and remediate it, but help get people's lives back together too. So we're seeing an acceleration of applications across affected counties, and I added the county of Sligo recently to the defective concrete block scheme. And I do look forward to the commencement of work on the Pathfinder projects on the apartment defects as well, because there are legacy issues that need to be dealt with whilst we're increasing supply. 110,000 new homes built in this country since this government came into office. Gurmagat Alaskian Corla.